We're gonna win with trade. We're gonna win with health. We're gonna win at so many levels.
Get out of here!
We're gonna win.
I think everyone has had enough of these plague-ridden
You're gonna say,
Sagaraki.
Mr. President, please, we don't want to win anymore.
Right.
It's too much.
Disease
and I'm gonna say,
from
I'm
where?
sorry. We're gonna keep winning.
Right. These steps go downwards. Hold it to wagon, steal through rat. If the elf can hold a drink, I'll eat my cousin's hat. Now this brings a smile as wide as Cousin Ockery's axe to my face. As strong as Grungi's hammer blows, as unyielding as the mountain. Down the drain and through the Kruntaraki snake when no one should.
We must start totally winning and winning and winning again. Remember when I used to say, we're going to win so much, cannot stand all this winning. They don't want to win so much. I don't care what they say in Missouri. We're going to keep winning and winning and winning and winning.
Thunder Buddy's for life, right, Johnny?
Fucking right.
All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song.
All right.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder Buddy and say these magic words. Fuck you, Thunder, you can suck my dick. You can't get me Thunder, cause you're just God's farts.
The party knife, Bidsy.
Welcome.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Party Knife Advanced Mechanics Guide. This time covering Fortunes of War, which hopefully by the end of this guide we can turn into Fortunes of Winning. Starting off with Guide Introduction and Listings. Now, having covered the introduction, shortly after this guide listings, I'm gonna go into the basic mission mechanics, followed by a detailed guide on the available resources and how to spend them. At which point we'll move on to the spawn guide, listing every single elite and special spawn on Cataclysm difficulty in chronological order as they appear per wave and subwave. After that we'll talk a little bit about items and talents, discussing the, generally speaking, best and worst classes and properties, and how you should think about combining them in order to structure your team in such a way as to maximize your chances of winning. In other words, which classes to go for and which to avoid if you want to have an easy time. At which point we're ready to talk about movement and positioning both as an individual and as a team, followed by gameplay examples with commentary of the hardest waves 5 and 8, and last but not least, hopefully piece it all together into some grand conclusion and or profound insight along with a couple of tips and tricks, and hopefully that will be enough to help at least some of you guys be victorious and get that sweet icon. And if not, well, then I'm sorry for wasting your time, but I don't know what more I can do. But anyways, I think that's enough screwing around. Let's get down to brass tacks, quite literally in part 2. Mission mechanics and covering the basics. Now, to start things off, Fortunes of War is a special unlockable mission that was added in the DLC Back to Ubersreich, which is required in order to unlock the ability to queue the map yourself. Now, assuming you own this DLC, in order to unlock the actual map, you first need to find 3 runes. Now, there's 1 rune hidden in each of the 3 DLC Back to Ubersreich maps. Now, each of them comes with a unique challenge, which you first have to complete in order to unlock the location where you can pick up the rune. Once you have all 3 runes, simply walk over to the Dwarven Lodestone, put them in, and you should then be able to queue the map. The winning of which will unlock an achievement in Okri's challenges, which comes with a reward in the form of an exclusive frame that gets better and better looking the higher the difficulty, as well as also unlocking the frame for all of the subsequent lower difficulties. Now, in a lot of ways, Fortunes of War is a lot more similar to a stationary weave without any modifiers than it is to an actual regular mission. This is because all of the spawns, both items and enemies, are predetermined or fixed, and thus there are no random spawns that can occur throughout the map. Now, regardless of the difficulty you are playing on, Fortunes of War has a total of 8 different waves, each of which consists of 3 to 9 subwaves. Not to be confused with Subway, which sells 1 foot long delicious sandwiches. Rather, this refers to the amount of triggers that make up each wave, a trigger being a certain threshold that when reached will then trigger the next set of enemy minion spawns, which is super important, but we'll get into more detail on that later in the guide. Now, players will respawn between each wave, and especially on the lower waves, this is a great way to save resources, as you can save both healing and ammunition by intentionally dying prior to triggering the end of a wave, allowing your teammates to simply rescue you, setting you at green HP and with a bit of extra ammunition. If you're ever uncertain what wave you're on, you can always count the lightning in the center of the map and subtract 1. Since the first wave has no lightning and the triggering of wave 2 is marked by 1 lightning and the triggering of wave 3 by 2 lightning and wave 4 by 3 lightning and so on, allowing you to always know and prepare between each wave regarding the special spawns to come. Which brings us to part 3, which is all about proper resource management. Now, on this picture that I politely hijacked from a really good Reddit FOV guide on Legend that I'll link down in the description below, you can see the location and variety of every single item spawn available to you in the mission, and adds up to a total of 10 healing items, 5 health potions and 5 medkits, 8 total ammunition refills, 6 potions, 2 of each variety, 8 bombs, 4 of each variety, and 7 barrels, 3 explosive and 4 burning. And this will always be the case and does not vary according to game difficulty. In other words, unless you have a Ranger Guardian or a Grail Knight with the right talent, this is what you have to work with. Now, I think most people intuitively know and understand that you have to save your resources as much as possible in order to increase your odds of surviving and beating Wave 8, which is by far the hardest. However, I don't think most people quite understand to what extent. So I'll try to be as concrete as I possibly can, although you should keep in mind there's no objective right or wrong answers here, and it will vary slightly from game to game. But a good rule of thumb that pretty much every seasoned FOV player would agree with is to not use any resources whatsoever prior to wave 5, unless you are literally the last person standing and will thus otherwise wipe, perhaps with a reasonable exception being the use of 1 to 2 ammunition refills. Now, just to be clear, I am not saying that if you fail to fulfill this criteria, you should just give up, leave and start over, but it is generally speaking a good and straightforward benchmark you can aim for to increase your chances of beating the later waves, and the ending of wave 4 in particular is a really good time for anyone without any green HP, or ammo for that matter, to intentionally suicide right before you kill the last minions, allowing you to rescue them, which makes them healthy without consuming any resources prior to the first really challenging wave, which is wave 5. Now, one thing people very often underestimate the value of is barrels, especially the burning barrels. And well, here's the thing about barrels. They deal massive AoE damage, which means the value of a given barrel increases proportionally to the density of enemy minion spawns. But unlike bombs, they are inherently impractical to use. In other words, early on in the game, they don't make much of a difference. They don't provide a lot of value, and they're very rarely going to be the difference between losing or winning a wave. However, once you get to wave 8, the details of which we will get to momentarily, you'll be swarmed by 9 consecutive subwaves, and the minion density throughout the entire map will increase dramatically, which not only increases their potential value, but pretty much ensures that they'll be worth their weight in gold. Since you also have things like a Storm Fiend slowly dealing friendly fire, you have Gas Rats slowly dealing friendly fire, you potentially have a Battle Wizard with a Burning Dot, and before you know it, all of those dots will add up to everything being dead. Now, for this reason, they are definitely worth stacking up in an attempt to try and ensure that you don't let them go to waste. And with that said, let's move on to part 4. Cataclysm Spawn Guide. Now, after spending 6 hours manually going through 3 Fortunes of War Cataclysm runs, first counting, then confirming, eventually verifying the amount of elite and special spawns in each wave, I decided a good way to visualize it was to spawn each of the waves, wave by wave and subwave by subwave, but do note that the infantry minions I have spawned in this context only represent the faction of infantry spawns you will get for that wave, and not the precise number or variety, since that would simply just take too long. But with that little caveat out of the way, let's get started. Now, wave 1 has a total of 3 different subwaves, the first of which starts out with 3 gunners and a bunch of chaos and Skaven infantry, which after 80 seconds or once cleared to less than 8 minions will trigger part 2 of this wave, which consists of 2 stranglers and a rat ogre on top of some more Skaven infantry, which will again after 80 seconds or once you've cleared all but 8 minions spawn the third and final part of wave 1, consisting of 14 storm vermins, some of which will be shielded, and has a trigger of 100 seconds or less than 3 enemies, which concludes wave 1 and allows you to rescue any dead players. Although that hopefully was not necessary for the first wave, or you're gonna have a tough time. Now, the first part of wave 2 is simply chaos infantry minions, but with a trigger of less than 20 enemies, at which point 5 gas rats and 8 chaos warriors will spawn, which is followed by yet another wave of just chaos infantry. That eventually triggers the last part of wave 2, which is a chaos spawn, 5 stranglers, a gas rat, a flame rat, and both chaos and Skaven infantry, which once cleared entirely brings us to the assassin wave, which starts out spawning 12 assassins and 3 gas rats, as well as Skaven infantry, which is followed by a wave of even more Skaven infantry, after which you'll get a double patrol consisting of 24 storm vermins. That's then followed by 4 Blightstormers and 2 Leeches, as well as Chaos Infantry. Lastly, we have a wave consisting of 12 Berserkers, 2 Raiders, and even more Chaos Infantry. 4-1 starts off with 14 Raiders, 2 Gun Rats, and Chaos Infantry, then quickly moving on to 14 Chaos Warriors, 6 Leeches, and Skaven Infantry, before 4.3 decides to go full Vietnam with 6 Gun Rats, 2 bonus Chaos Warriors, and more Skaven Infantry. And finishing off wave 4, we have the amazing combination of 18 Storm Vermins, 2 Stranglers, 1 Flame Rat, and Skaven Infantry. And as you can see, the next wave has a trigger of less than 1 enemy or 100 seconds, which means this is a really good point to make sure that everyone on the team is nice and healthy in preparation for the cancer that begins with wave 5. Which is where shit really starts to get interesting, starting off with 20 monks, 6 flame rats, and chaos infantry. Now that in of itself is usually not an issue, but here's where shit starts to get interesting, cause the next wave we have a storm fiend, 4 gas rats, and Skaven infantry, and it's usually here that people are way too preoccupied with the 6 flame rats and the 4 gas rats or whatever is left of them, as well as the storm fiend, that no one notices that suddenly you have 8 stranglers and more Skaven infantry. And really what you want to do here is as soon as the Storm Fiend arrives, you want to warn your team, and then you want to be prepared, position yourself in the places where you know the Stranglers are going to come from, so you can take them out as fast as possible. You're very likely going to have low visibility due to all the specials in the Storm Fiend, so once you let them roam around, you have no clue where they're coming from, so if there's 8 of them left, then you're pretty darn screwed. And finally we have 10 Storm Vermins and even more Skaven infantry. Followed by wave 6, which initiates with a double monk patrol, 24 monks in total, and Skaven infantry. That's then followed by 32 storm vermins, a lot of which will be shielded, as well as 4 gas rats. And then just to piss you off, the next wave will throw 4 assassins at you and more Skaven infantry for extra confusion, followed by 14 maulers, 8 gun rats, so full Vietnam again, 2 leeches, and more Skaven infantry. Which, you know, is annoying, but it's not the worst wave. It's all pretty doable, and it's even kind enough to end on a wave of just Skaven infantry and nothing else. Wave 7 starts off with 2 stranglers, 2 leeches, and a bunch of Skaven infantry. That's quickly followed up by a troll, 2 blightstormers, and even more Skaven infantry. That is then followed up by 20 monks, so essentially 2 patrols. After the monks, we got 6 gas rats, 16 storm vermins, and even more Skaven infantry. And topping it all off before the big finale is 24 chaos warriors, 2 raiders, 5 blightstormers, and Skaven infantry. And at this point you should congratulate yourself for making it this far, pat yourself on the shoulder, and say a prayer to Sigmar, cause now we've reached Wave 8, which looks a little something like this. Yep, that's right, Wave 8 does not fuck around. It starts off nice and relaxed though with, a Rat Ogre, a Troll, 4 Raiders, 6 Chaos Warriors, a Blightstormer, and some Chaos Infantry. Nice and relaxing, good vibes all around, plenty of time to, get your affairs in order, write down your will, prepare to meet Sigmar, whatever floats your boat, as the game throws a nice and reasonable triple assassin at you with some more Skaven infantry. Nothing to worry about too much, ain't nothing but a thing. However, this is where people usually click the panic button, as we move on to 3 Stranglers, 16 Berserkers, 8 Raiders, and Skaven infantry, and keep in mind the bosses are very likely still alive at this point. But we'll get into more details on that later, since right now we move on to the next wave, which consists of 4 Gas Rats, 3 Chaos Warriors, 2 Raiders, and Chaos Infantry. And I know what you might be thinking, that actually doesn't sound too bad. I mean, it wouldn't be in of itself, but you ain't gonna clear that in time, and this is usually where things go completely fucking insane and everyone just dies, as we move on to the next wave, which has 3 Gun Rats, 2 Stranglers, 24 Storm Vermins, and an extra Rat Ogre. And that's when shit really hits the fan and people start to panic, especially as this wave transitions into the next, where you then also get 2 Assassins, and an extra Gas Rat, and an extra Gun Rat, and 14 Monks, and sprinkle in a Storm Fiend, and some more Skaven infantry, and you have yourself half a fucking army. Wait, only half an army? Oh yeah, that's right, cause the other half of the army is waiting right over here, with 4 Flame Rats, 12 Raiders, 20 Storm Vermins, 2 Blightstormers, 3 Leeches, 5 Chaos Warriors, and even more Skaven infantry. And that's that's the peak, right? That's you've reached the summit of Mount Cancer, and if you can just stay alive from here on out, then you're gonna be just fine. Easy peasy, no problem. Just survive, that's all you gotta do. Cause I mean, the next waves ain't nothing but a thing. That's just some Chaos and Skaven infantry, which, just to add a little bit of extra, trash from all sides as you try to stay alive. So that wave in of itself, again, isn't really much. And finally, super disappointingly, we have a wave of 10 Chaos Warriors and more Skaven infantry, and that's when you're off the hook. Now, one thing to notice here is the final trigger of 300 seconds or less than 1 enemy. Now, what that means, and what I think a lot of players actually don't realize, is you don't have to kill all of this stuff in order to win the map. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but essentially after those 300 seconds, like the final trigger, the map, like the end event will finish, everyone will revive so they can be rescued, and you can then safely win the map. That means even if you're the last guy standing, your goal should not be to kill everything. Your goal should be to just stay alive for as long as possible, which we will get to momentarily. Now, since I assume it's highly unlikely that every single one of you have a photographic memory, I've also linked 2 Reddit posts down in the description, the first of which contains the full list of spawns for both Legend and Cataclysm difficulty in a more sort of portable format that you can have open and look at while you're playing, and the second link is to the Reddit post that I hijacked the item spawn location picture from, as well as the list of spawns for Legend difficulty. But with that said, I think we're all ready to move on to part 5. Items, talents, properties, and team composition. Now, starting off with what is inarguably the most important pick if you want to have an easy time, it is of course the Battle Wizard. And in Sienna's case specifically, it really is a no-brainer, since both Unchained and Pyromancer comparatively perform extremely underwhelming under pressure. And the Battle Wizard with a Fire Sword or Dagger and a Conflag Staff provides so much crowd control, keeping your team alive, as well as being one of, if not the only hero that can dish out massive amounts of AoE damage without ever having to play aggressively. Now, as for the Battle Wizard specifically, I would recommend the defensive version of the Varnished Flame build, which uses Barkskin and Suit Shield, as well as 30% block cost reduction on the weapon, and a very strong emphasis on the 30% stamina recovery rate, as well as the 5% movement speed on the trinket. which is absolutely necessary in order to prevent getting overwhelmed when going in circles during the final wave, but we'll get to that in part 6. Moving on to Saltspire, I would say all 3 classes are viable, although Bounty Hunter in particular has a much smaller margin for error, and I would thus suggest either a Zealot with a billhook or a Witch Hunter Captain with a Rapier, since they both provide a form of crowd control as well as good armor and special kill potential, as well as both having decent survival capabilities. The Zealot perhaps more so than Witch Hunter Captain, but at the same time the Witch Hunter Captain has his plus 20% extra damage on marked enemies, which in of itself also provides extra value for the entire team. As for the Zealot, it's mostly a choice between Holy Fortitude and Armor of Faith, and Devotion or Redemption through Blood. You have plenty of attack speed, so I suggest running crit chance and block cost reduction with Swift Slaying, and I would do the exact same for the Rapier. And as for his ranged weapon, you can get either the crossbow or the brace of pistols, whichever you are most comfortable on, although the crossbow is way more ammo efficient. And as for his trinket, again either crit chance or stamina recovery or movement speed. Any combination of those 3 properties can be adjusted to fit your playstyle. And as for the necklace, you definitely want stamina and health, as well as either bark skin, or if you're playing the Witch Hunter Captain, you can also grab Boon of Shalia, but personally I do prefer bark skin in either case. And as for the overall team composition, I just want to remind everyone that it's not necessarily that one given class is the right or wrong pick in any given case, it's more about ensuring that you have a little bit of everything. You need someone that can create space, you need someone that can take out long distance specials accurately and consistently, and of course you also want to make sure that everyone is playing a hero that they are comfortable with. Now, as for Kruper, I would say all 4 of his classes are viable, but if you were to ask me which one performs the best overall, I think I would go for the Mercenary, and preferably with the Tuskor Spear. Now, you've heard me say many times before that his best weapon is an Executioner Sword, but I think for the context of Fortunes of War, we really cannot underestimate the value of staying alive, as you will see in the gameplay clips later on. Now, the reason the Mercenary is so invaluable is, among other things, the fact that he can do a little bit of everything. He can take out specials, he can fight armored minions, he can stay alive himself, but he can also keep the team alive with his amazing ultimate ability, which provides both stagger temporary HP for you and your team, as well as a damage reduction buff. Now, at the moment, damage reduction stacks additively and not multiplicatively, which is a great thing, which is why I would definitely combine Walk It Off with Blade Barrier as well as with Bark Skin. However, this might very well change in the Big Balance Beta when that goes official, but for now at least, stacking damage reduction is absolutely amazing. Now, as for the Mercenary, I would definitely grab a Repeater Handgun, since it's by far the most versatile of his ranged weapons, and although I forgot to put block cost reduction on my weapon during the recording, I would definitely still put block cost reduction and crit chance on, combined with movement speed and stamina recovery on the trinket for survival, as well as 2 stamina and health on the necklace. Now, as you'll see my good friend Kex from my weak team perform to perfection later in the video, you want to learn how to do the light attack block cancel, poke attack, since this is absolutely amazing. Now, in this given scenario, I have chosen to use Spear and Shield on the Handmaiden, mostly because we don't have anyone else who has a shielded weapon, and although both the dual daggers and the sword and dagger are viable weapons, I feel like at least having one player with a shielded weapon can provide so much space for the rest of the team. But regardless of whether I was using the daggers, the sword and dagger, or the spear and shield, I would definitely be running block cost reduction on the weapon itself, and you can also combine that with Birch Stance, although Quiver of Plenty is also really useful if you're planning to take out multiple specials. Now, regardless of all of that, I would always be running Wraithwalk and Gift of Ladriel, since being able to dodge through minions and having invisibility is just invaluable. Now, depending on your choice of weapon, you can switch between either Martial Blessing, which is temporary HP on kills, or Spirit Echo, which is temporary HP based on enemies hit. Now, assuming you have the focused spirit buff, which is the 15% power when you haven't taken damage for a while, then you only need 10% versus either Skaven, or in my case here, infantry, in order to one-shot, body shot, and assassin. Now, I also want to mention that both the Waystalker and the Shade are very viable picks in their own right, but if you're picking the Shade just because you can kill a boss quickly, then you're probably going about it the wrong way, I have to say, since as you'll see in the gameplay clips, really the bosses themselves aren't the issue, but one crucial thing about the Handmaiden is her ability to resurrect people, as well as her 100% stamina recovery aura, which affects the entire team whenever they're in proximity. But anyways, that's my suggestion for an easy to win setup, and the thing to notice here is that there's not a single hero here that needs constant babysitting. Everyone here with the builds I've provided have decent survivability and can thus take care of themselves for at least a limited amount of time when the team inevitably gets separated. But with that said, let's move on to part 6. Map movement and positioning. Now, obviously, movement plays a huge part in surviving and winning in general, and whilst you might not always know exactly where to go, the thing you want to avoid in particular can be demonstrated fairly easily. If you imagine the yellow dots are 2 players, the black dots are a bunch of enemies, and the red path is the backwards path that they're dodging in, then you're gonna have an obvious problem momentarily, and that's once you actually reach each other, then suddenly you're gonna find yourself absolutely surrounded with nowhere to go, which I think we can all agree is not optimal. Now, as it happens, there is a fairly easy solution, and you probably guessed it, let's all go in the same direction. Now, one direction is actually better than the other. And no, I am not referring to the absolute piece of shit boy band. What I'm talking about is going counterclockwise, which I've marked with this little arrow here. And the reasoning behind this is really pretty straightforward. There are more things that you can go up on and then drop down from in order to delay enemies on the up and down parts, as well as being easier to execute, as I'll demonstrate here. Now, it doesn't really matter where you start. Like, you start where you have to start, right? You're getting overrun, and I want you to imagine that here you're not just running as fast as possible the way I'm doing it. You're always making sure that whoever is furthest in the back can always keep up. So if I was a battle wizard, I would still be staggering stuff behind me. If I had a shield, I would be pushing stuff behind me. And really the key here is to have a good flow alongside your team. Now, as you can see here, there are plenty of things that can delay the movement of your enemies. And it's important that you move up on every single one of these items, like here, which is one of the parts that are simply better when you move this direction. Damn it, I fucked up the perfect jump here though, you can't actually get all the way up on it. But there are also a couple of things you want to know and avoid. Like, this place here, the fence is super easy to jump over from one side, but nearly if not impossible from the other. The left side of the fence, that is. On the right side, it is definitely possible to jump over, but in either case, it is simply much easier when you're coming from the other side. And trust me when I say you do not want to get stuck here. This can literally be the difference between living or dying. So if you ever do find yourself going clockwise, then make sure to go on the right side of the fence. And do keep in mind that even as you are going counterclockwise, on the right side of the fence here, you still need a good jump from a distance in order to get over it. Another place you want to watch just a little bit out for is this place right here, where as you're crossing, you can actually get stuck in this thing here, which might seem like a minor thing, but it can actually be the difference between living or dying. Now, as for the assassin wave, which is wave 3, there are 3 different positions you can take in order to prevent getting wrecked. The first of which is this little area here. Having someone to push on either side, and you should be fine. Like, I would definitely say that this spot works, but I would also argue that there are 2 spots that are simply better. The first and most obvious of which is the marketplace, and that's probably where most teams decide to hold up. And for good reasons, since it's one of the only places with an actual roof. This prevents assassins from jumping you from all directions, but also their pathing is kinda bugged here, as you can clearly see in this clip here, which is also one of the reasons it's the go-to spot for anyone soloing Fortunes of War on Legend, since the assassins will only sometimes come in from the left side, and otherwise their path is sort of bugged all over the place, as they follow a fairly predictable pattern in which they jump up and down to get over the fence on the right side, giving you an optimal position to shoot them from. Now lastly, there is one more, perhaps less obvious spot, which I'm gonna call the sawmill, simply due to all of the wooden planks. Now, at first glance, this seems to offer very little protection from assassins, but the truth is that you actually bug out assassins equally much here as you do in the marketplace. Now, I don't feel I can objectively say either is better than the other, since I know a bunch of really experienced FOV players who prefer one, and I know a bunch who prefer the other. Personally, I like this place, mostly because you have better vision on the gas rats that are spawning. And just to be clear, assassins are not gonna jump you over the planks in the middle, which again means you can have someone safe in the middle and defend either side. But let's move on to part 7. Gameplay and commentary, waves 5 and 8. Now, since I didn't want to reuse clips from the Fortunes of War run that I ran recently, which happens to be the only FOV Cata run I've done since I lost 1 terabyte of my recordings due to a corrupted drive, we're gonna be looking at /Kex, my good friend whom you might recognize from my OV videos in all of these runs. and I've put a link to his YouTube channel down in the description. Now, we're only going to be looking at a slice of wave 5, which is namely the part right before you get stranglers, and you should always know that once you hear the Storm Fiend and the Gas Rats, you have exactly 80 seconds until you get 5 stranglers. And they're always gonna arrive from, roughly speaking, the 5 same different positions. Now, obviously one thing you can do to mitigate the risk is stick together. That way, if someone actually gets grabbed by the Strangler, you have, like in this instance, a Battle Wizard ready with their ulti. Although thankfully in this instance, that wasn't necessary. And just to be clear, it's not that you have to hug each other, you just have to be within reasonable range, so that if a fuck up occurs, you have someone ready to help you. Now, I do apologize for the quality of the mercenary clips, but YouTube refused to let me grab it in 1080 pixels. Now, in this instance, they dealt with it quite differently. Their Shade decided to use a Kong Pot in order to remove the Storm Fiend before the Strangler spawned. Which is why, all credit to /Cax, I was baffled when I realized that he ended up being the person who took out all 5 Stranglers. So, you know, you could always just have a /Cax on a mercenary and, you know, easy victory, no problem. But on a more serious note, one of the reasons he had such an easy time dealing with all of the Stranglers was because there wasn't much else to deal with. And again, a Strangler in of itself isn't that much of a problem. It becomes a problem when it's obscured in a mist of gas and minions, or when you have to deal with more than one at a time and they aren't synchronized, which does make it extremely hard to time the dodge. Well played, Slash. Well played. Now, due to this discrepancy regarding the quality of the video, I was originally gonna use your Battle Wizard clip, and things also went a lot better there, to say the least. But I eventually opted to use your mercenary clip anyway, since things went just about as horribly wrong as they possibly could, and yet somehow you still managed to get the win. Now, if you guys want to see how it's done properly as a team, I suggest going to /Cax's channel and checking out his Cataclysm Fortunes of War game playing as the Battle Wizard, or checking out the run I uploaded roughly a week ago. But there wasn't really room for 2 full Wave 8 runs since it takes quite a while, and you guys have to see this. Now, I'm gonna shut up for the entire run so you guys can enjoy it, and I want to emphasize that you guys should really take note of how he moves around in order to prevent
in hell! Listen, that's a vile troll, isn't it? Look at us run! One die! That's a gas rat!
Gas rat throwing!
Eat my steel, gas rat! Chaos warrior! I was in another freak! Well done! Don't want to get separated!
Gunner, my destino lord will tell you.
Three pairs. Strangle a rat! That's been done! Gun team!
Dizzy fanatics.
Oh, she's gone! We've got gas incoming! There, plague loot! That gas rat's about to blow! That's a gas rat! Heads up, over there! Gas attack! Watch out! Heavy gunner! That's a gas rat! Gas ball! Here, that's a walk thrower! Stop it, elves! Out of the way, the gas rat's gonna explode! Sweet tar, a fire rat! We've unleashed by the sound of it. Oh, a chaos warrior! Sword soldier, he's up to no good. On your toes, mate. Mind the shield bearers. Reckon I'm done for. chaos warrior. Feel vermin among them. I don't want them to a crisp, so kill that warfire thrower. Awakes the Chaos Warriors. Don't want to lose more. Almost got help. Watch out! Chaos Warrior, maybe don't fight it alone.
You guys hear that? That means wave 8 has just ended. That is, nothing further will spawn and you can now resurrect your entire team. Which is why I try to put so much emphasis on just surviving, staying alive the best you can, and not worrying too much about dealing damage throughout wave 8.
That's it. The statue is coming apart.
There's a rot help. Careful or he'll have your head. Rot help.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, I stabbed a man in the heart.
I saw that. Brick killed a guy. Did you throw a trident?
Yeah, there were horses and a man on fire, and I killed a guy with a trident.
Yes, you did kill a guy with a trident. Anyways, that brings us to part 8. I don't know, it's about damn time. Conclusion and final thoughts, tips and tricks. Now, I have said pretty much everything I want to say, but one final tip I wanted to give, which is definitely oversimplified in this example, but nonetheless accurate, is that you want to hunt specials down while you know where they are. In other words, once you familiarize yourself with when and where different specials spawn, the only time you really know where a special is going to be for sure is when it spawns. So once you know that X amount of this special spawns here and there, make sure you go there. You want to actively seek out the special and hunt it down. Also, make sure you call out when you kill a special, especially when we're talking disablers. That way, if you know how many spawned and you know how many killed, then you know how many are left. In conclusion, FOV on Cata is and should be a team effort. Make sure you know how many specials are gonna spawn and when they're gonna spawn on the difficult waves. Make sure you communicate with your team so everyone is on the same page and move in similar ways. Try the best you can to limit your use of resources so you have the healing you need and those life-saving concentration pots for when it really matters. And lastly, don't give up. Persistence is the key to victory. Keep going and you'll get it eventually, guys. Also, if you lose and it wasn't your fault, try not to be a dick about it, guys. I have a video coming out on this very subject. Once you start getting triggered, and it only takes one person for everyone to start getting triggered, then call it a day, try again tomorrow. There's no going back from that, and that's just, that's never going to be helpful, it's not going to be enjoyable. So if you lose and someone is at fault, try not to mention it, try to be nice to each other. Okay guys, promise me that. Anyways, that's all I had for you guys this time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, because it took a hella long time to make. So yeah, anyways, I love you guys. Stay awesome. Peace out.